We are right back with more from DCV Live. You know, my first guest tonight is UC Merced alumni from the class of 2021. She was the former MVP and top Bobcat cheerleader of the UC Merced Bobcat team, and she's now the youth advocate for Power California. Please welcome Astrid Morales. Astrid, we're so honored to have you.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Many people know you because you were a part of Bobcat cheer team for a while now, and you appeared on front page news all the time, or should I say every time UC Merced won a game or a championship, regardless of which sport you're talking about, whether it is soccer or basketball or volleyball, right? Now you are a community organizer and a youth advocate at Power California. So for those who don't know who you are, can you walk us through how you went from cheering for the Bobcats to cheering for the community, as many know it?
Oh, I appreciate that. Yes, I love sharing this story too. When I graduated, that was like the start of the pandemic around that time. So unfortunately, my graduation was a slideshow. After I graduated, I actually I was on unemployment for a while. I wasn't sure what I was going to do with my life. I felt defeated, felt like my degree was for nothing until I ran across Power California. Power California, and that name sounded familiar because they actually came to my high school way back in high school. They did a presentation and they talked about advocacy. And advocacy was something that I was never really interested in at first. I didn't know how much power like a young person's voice has, going to city council meetings, having rallies, getting others to turn out to vote, to take action. So that's really what got me started. So when I saw that Power California was hiring in Merced, I decided to work with them. I did a campaign where we won $1.25 million for youth jobs, which is incredible. And we did that through organizing. So honestly, as I said, I was someone who wasn't really into it. But when I got to hear other people share their stories as to why they got involved, it made me want to also be an advocate and help others.
I remember when I joined CalPERC for the first time and I was introduced to this broad idea of organizing, because before I randomly just saw people protesting out of nothing, because I really did not get the message or understand the context behind the message that well. But over time, I eventually learned that organizing and building power within communities was very important. So that being said, I find your success story very interesting because many young people, especially college students, want to know what it's like to have a career in grassroots or in organizing. I find it very common for parents to be skeptical about certain career choices their kids make, right, when they graduate off from college. What I mean by that is that not everyone knows what organizing is or the level of effort that it takes to promote organizing everywhere. The first thing that comes to mind when they think of organizing is protesting, boycotting, or interrupting business or public peace. There's a negative stigma associated with that. Did you get any support from your family or friends the first time you exposed them to the work that you do in Powell, California?
There wasn't a lot of hype, I guess, around. And the reason I say that is because I am a daughter of immigrant parents. My mom immigrated from El Salvador. When she came to the US, she was only 13 years old. There was a war going on. So, when she came to the US, she came here to give me a better life, get my education. And she also realistically, she wanted me to continue school, which is, if y'all want to go for your PhD, do that. For me, school wasn't always my favorite thing. My favorite thing was always communicating, collaborating. And that's what I do. I talk with other organizations. I talk with other young people to get them involved. Now, of course, they do fully support it. I think mainly because they saw that I talked to Gavin Newsom.
I believe we have a picture here of you next to Governor Newsom. Now, this looks more like a Hollywood photo op. Is there something we don't know?
They saw me like on articles and they were like, oh, like Mija, like you're doing a lot. And I'm like, yeah, like this is what I tried telling you. So I think like, and a lot of people like part of the Latino community, or like even if you have immigrant parents, can understand that sometimes our families don't understand, also because my mom, you know, she didn't go to high school, she didn't go to college. So it's really hard to explain to her the kind of work that I do. It's not the same as saying like I'm a doctor, or the same as saying you know, I'm a lawyer. This is like a different type of work. This is nonprofit work, which is not like your typical like 9 to 5. It's like it's different every day. That was the initial reaction from them. It was just like confusion, not sure, like, oh, what about school, things like that. But now, you know, they're proud of me. So yeah, I think now like they're all pretty proud of the work that I do.
I'm curious to know, what was your first impression of the American dream from the early days in the public school system to your first steps at UC Merced and to now being a youth advocate for Power California?
I've never really had a positive like perception on the American dream. I always felt like it was a sham. Honestly, I was really blessed growing up to have teachers that really taught me like the real side of history, and really just going in and teaching us things that weren't really like on their like on the books for them to teach. So for instance, like they taught me about the Chicano pipeline, where like, you know, a lot of college students, the school to prison pipeline, teaching me those kinds of things and letting me know that like for minorities, people who are low income, it's like we're set up to fail most of the time. So those of us who really do like make it out of the rough, you know, jumping all these hoops, just get to one spot when there's other people, you know, like who have it easy, you know, generational wealth, things like that. So it's really hard to like really break that cycle and be able to like support your family. For most of us, we're our family's retirement plan, you know? So what's it called? For me, the American dream was never like something that I, you know, was fond of. I already knew that it wasn't like true in my case.
Quick disclaimer to my listeners, The Wolf of Wall Street is not a classic movie, all right? I have never seen a group of men in a room wanted to stroke themselves and outspend each other, you know, just for benefit and for boosting corporate sales. But here's the thing, Astrid. We here at DCV Live have came up with a greatest American classical movie that depicts your version of the American dream. It's called The Ham is a Sham. I dare you to go watch it. Moving on to local politics. Last year, Power California and other grassroots organizations have strongly advocated for the creation of the Merced Youth Jobs Program. You guys have issued public comment towards the city council, asking them to allocate $1.25 million from the American Rescue Plan in order to fund this program and make it as available as to many young people in the area. It was officially a success, and I strongly congratulate you guys for that. Despite having a divided city council, which none of us expected this to become reality. And according to the Merced County Times, the Merced Youth Jobs Program was initially designed under a contract with Merced County and the city of Merced as a temporary program that will employ young people ages 16 to 24. We're now in a new year, and the program is running out of funds. And Power California and your allies are back again, asking the City Council to continue funding for the Merced Youth Jobs Program, given the good results and the positive socioeconomic impacts it has brought into our communities. Are you concerned at all that with this growing debate within the grassroots community and within other city officials about making this Merced Youth Jobs Program permanent, will face even tougher political challenges?
We did have another campaign called Fund Our Futures, where we basically won $500,000, and that was with the city's local budget, and that's what we're trying to get youth investment for. You know, we need that from the budget. That way it could stay, you know, long term, because we can't have money running out or else we don't get to continue the program. And as you mentioned, the city council is unfortunately like divided. We do have like research meetings with like each of the council members to really try to convince them, because most of the time people think we just submit public comment and like that's it. But it's like, no, there's more behind the scenes. You know, we meet with them one-on-one. We provide them with statistics, like letting them know, like, look how much families do better when, you know, they have young folks like applying for jobs and jobs that are like that actually really help them with their careers, you know, like not just like a no shame if you work and like retail or whatnot. There are people who do want to like learn other skills that are going to help them expand in their career. So what's it called? We are going to run into those issues, we know. And sometimes when it comes to organizing, it's a long-term battle. It's not going to happen overnight. It's something that you need to like strategically plan, work with other orgs, submitting public comment, phone banking, canvassing, and at the end of the day, making sure people are registered to vote so that they could also vote for people who are going to represent them. Like represent them, make sure they push for progressive things like affordable housing and youth investment. So that's like the long-term solution. Short-term solution is really just like advocating for your community by going like to city council meetings and letting them know like, hey, I'm a young person. I need housing. I need youth investment. So those are the things that, we're prepared for that. And it's part of organizing where you have your wins, you have your losses, but you continue to push through.
Do you expect to see voter turnout increase in the upcoming 2024 elections?
Yeah, I honestly do think so. After the election where like Trump won for the first time, voter turnout did go up for young people. So I do expect it to go up again. I think most of the times, especially here in the Central Valley, a lot of folks don't know like where to go to register to vote. I've done like classroom presentations. A lot of students don't know that they're eligible like to pre-register when they're 16 or 17. And like I said, not a lot of schools like really push for voter registration. A lot of times like teachers will tell me like, oh, that's something they should do at home. So, and then when you have parents who are immigrants, they're not going to teach you because they're not even eligible to vote. So that's, it's up to the student to be like responsible and learn. But that's why, Power California and other orgs too, like we go to like campuses and tell people like, provide them with the resources like to register to vote, transportation if needed, an explanation too. Some people don't know the history of voter suppression. So my hope is that, voter turnout, especially for young folks 18 to 24 will go up.
Were you pre-registered to vote back in your days? Or did you at least have some knowledge about that before?
Yeah, I didn't. What is it? It was Power California that came and taught me. So they did a presentation. Yeah, that's why it's crazy how it came full circle because I was like in high school. They came to my high school. They did a classroom presentation. And at the time, I wasn't eligible to pre-register because I was 15. But by the time I turned 16, I already knew how to like pre-register to vote by going online and stuff. So that's why I'm saying like I really appreciate like orgs like that like take the time to like go and actually like help young folks because a lot of times we don't know and we could do like educate ourselves as much as we can, but sometimes having like direct services is really helpful.
I want to get into the ongoing emergency response from all stakes of government in terms of Merced County being hit one of the massive floods, displacing up to 1,600 Merced residents and leaving 26 Merced businesses facing property damages. I know President Biden has recently declared a major disaster in Merced County along with Sacramento and Santa Cruz. These were all areas that were heavily impacted by the extreme winter that included winter storms, floods, mudslides, and landslides. And I'm wondering, as the city of Merced is about to kick off its first budget hearing of the year, what do you expect to hear from the city to do in order to help get the city back in place, given that disaster relief is really challenging to get due to bureaucratic hurdles?
Yeah, I think the council members, especially here in the city of Merced, need to talk to the county. The county of Merced has way more money than the city. That way they could have a disaster relief fund for these kinds of issues. It's something that could have been prevented or could have been, could have been done better. For instance, I was impacted. I live in Willowbrook, and our place was very much flooded. And the way I found out about the evacuation notice was the city of Merced posted on Instagram that there was an evacuation notice. Not a lot of people have an Instagram. So
did they even bother to just like print out flyers and just like, drop them off at their doors, even when their mailboxes, were flooded as well?
Nothing. And I even the complex as well, the apartment complex I live in, it was really funny because like during, when after the fact that it flooded, that's when they decided to send a message like, hey, by the way, you should evacuate, but it's kind of like too late now. Everyone on the first floor was evacuated. I live on the second floor, so I stayed on the second floor. But lots of folks were evacuated. And honestly, I know FEMA is like doing stuff right now, but unfortunately, a lot of those resources are not for renters, are not for folks who, or they are for renters, it's not enough. For instance, if you're like a homeowner under like 65 years old, you get a $36,000 grant. That would mean so much to the folks in Planada whose entire homes were destroyed, have to throw away all their belongings because it's contaminated with flood water that could have all this, nasty guck in it. And our, folks who are immigrants, a lot of farm workers are immigrants, and they don't qualify for any of those resources. So it's nice to see that like the community knows how to come together. For instance, they started the Merced like Farm Workers Fund where they raised like a lot of money, and that was like from community members. So seeing that none of the city council members donated to that fund, that just goes to show that there are things they can do, whether it's like donating or like sharing the post, talking to the county, and really advocating like that this is a necessity. Because there's a lot of things going on here in Merced and in every city, South Merced, North Merced. If you look at flood images, compare them next to each other, you'll see that North Merced looks not as bad as South Merced.
What worries me is, given the flood impacts of North Merced and South Merced, the incentive to build affordable housing in South Merced is not as strong compared to the incentive of building affordable housing in North Merced, since the city of Merced has traditionally kept expanding its scarce housing supply up north, right? Even beyond the city's limits. Now, are you concerned that the recent impacts of the floods will disrupt the city council's direction on affordable housing?
They have had affordable housing projects that have started since 2014. And let me tell you, Jeremy, I have not seen them since 2014. It is 2023. So I know, of course, it's going to keep getting pushed off. But, I know that's something that's also talked about. Apparently, their developers don't want to build in South Merced. They don't want to. They'd rather build in North Merced, but then that would cause folks who grew up in South Merced to have to move, leave their neighborhoods. And it's just something that just goes to show like how it is in the city and why we really need to invest in South Merced, because there's more liquor stores than grocery stores in South Merced. And I understand like the flood, lots of property were damages. So now this is going to give developers even more of a reason to not invest in South Merced. But it's the job of our city council members to really advocate and push for it and do what needs to get done. Because at the end of the day, like we really need to protect our citizens.
Lastly, before you go, can you give our listeners a quick outlook on what youth advocacy will turn out to be in this new year?
Yeah, I do believe that for the youth jobs training, I do believe that's something it's gonna be a long ride, but I think it is something, even if it's not the amount we want, it is something that we can probably do. With housing, Power California, we're actually pushing for statewide housing this year. We're actually going to go to the Capitol, talk to some legislators, and we're bringing young folks with us so that they could talk and really share their experience with housing in the state of California, so that they could advocate and let them know like why we need affordable housing. And affordable housing is vague, like there's rent control, eviction protection, things like that. So that that's what we're pushing for. And then youth investment, like you said, the youth jobs is going to be, I feel like, hopefully the city recognizes that it does make an impact on the folks who are in that program. They're doing good. Those are folks who have been impacted by the system, and now they're doing really great work. So hopefully the city could recognize that and be like, okay, this is something we need to continue, especially for, the younger generations that are coming. So honestly, in this 2023, I think it's going to go good. And even if it doesn't, like we still have community, like I said, seeing the community come together, orgs like Young Revolutionary Front, we said Merced, the 99 Roots Collective, like seeing them all come together as a community to raise money for farm workers, like that's something that we can do too. So at the end of the day, we have each other, we can organize with each other. We can't always rely on elected officials. So either way, it's going to be a good year for organizing.
Astrid Morales is the membership organizer for Power California and UCM alumni from the class of 2021. Astrid, thank you so much for being here.
Yes, thank you, Jeremy.
For more info on how to join the movement and how to be a part of all these top-notch campaigns of Power California, you can go to powercalifornia.org. Astrid Morales, everybody. We'll be right back with a student-friendly therapy session on how to break your debt ceiling in your life. Stick around.